Well, I know Chevron recently introduced a new biodegradable hydraulic fluid, the Clarity Bio EliteSyn AW. So maybe just to start our conversation, what prompted the development of this new hydraulic fluid? And, was there maybe something in the industry, is it something the industry has been asking for, or were there other factors that kind of prompted its development?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sarah. So in the space for which we've developed the Clarity Bio EliteSyn AW hydraulic fluid, it's really an industry that has been growing in demand for a need to have sustainable solutions, but not to compromise on the hydraulic fluid's ability to perform and protect the equipment well. Additionally, we've had an increase in regulatory requirements. Some new regulations with the EU Eco label had come out. The US has had the EPA's VGP, which stands for Vessel General Permitting. There's a Swedish standard, and then we have the ISO for the International Standardization Organization of the 15380. So all of these have regulatory requirements a little bit unique and different. One of the most stringent is the EU Eco label. And it's really specifying what performance requirements are needed to meet environmental standards. And so we needed to create a fluid that can meet the highest level of environmental standards, but not compromising on the performance of what you would see with a traditional synthetic hydraulic fluid. Many of the biodegradable fluids out there today are lacking the ability to be durable. They have some seal compatibility issues. They don't necessarily have the best hydrolytic stability or air release, as well as the fact that many original equipment manufacturers are coming out with fluid cleanliness as well. So you have to be able to filter and clean this product to make sure that you're not damaging it with contaminants in that system as well. And really, this is just part of our overall commitment within Chevron for providing products that have sustainability metrics with them and can reduce the environmental impact. So we want to be able to do that across industries and not just meet regulations, but exceed them.
Okay. And so maybe could you go into this new hydraulic fluid a little bit and maybe how it differs from maybe more of a traditional hydraulic fluid and or what factors help to make it biodegradable?
Traditional hydraulic fluids today are made with kind of two components. You have a base oil, and then you have the additives that go in it. And it's those two things combined that will allow that product to have certain performance attributes. Many of the hydraulic fluids today, they're in the market for EAL, environmentally approved lubricant, are made with a vegetable base oil or a ester base oil. Ours is made with a different type of base oil, and I'll get to that in a minute. But our product was really an evolution of the Clarity synthetic product that we have today, but this one is different because it has a renewable component. It's made with 85% or greater synthetic base stock. If you go into the different standardizations of what those base oils are, we consider this a group 3 plus base oil. And the best way I can explain it is that it's very similar to a renewable PAO, which stands for polyalpha olefin.
Great. And so, what are maybe some of the challenges associated with development of biodegradable hydraulic fluids, and what factors maybe need to be taken into account during development of them?
Yeah, great question. Again, kind of mentioned earlier, the two components that make up a fluid is the base oil and the additives. And so the traditional base oils that are out there today to make up an environmentally approved lubricant are a vegetable base oil or an ester. And a vegetable is great because it's renewable, but they tend to have a shorter lifespan because they break down with high temperatures or what we call thermal degradation, and they oxidize rapidly. When you get too much oxidation, it turns acidic and it's harmful to equipment. So you have to change that fluid more frequently. Next, we have what are called esters, and they last longer than a vegetable base oil, and they're similar to like a synthetic, but they don't play well with various polymers, and polymers are used in the rubber inside seals and many different pieces of equipment. It can cause that seal to become hard, or it can change the size of that seal, which means that it can lead to breakdowns in the equipment as well as leakage of that hydraulic fluid. And we all know nobody wants stuff leaking out there,
Right.
even though it does happen, right? Which is why we have this environmental regulation to make sure that the products can be readily biodegradable. as well as the fact that esters also pose a challenge. They're considered what's called a hygroscopic fluid, meaning that they like to attract and retain water, and they already have a high amount of water in them, just naturally associated within that fluid. So that can reduce, again, the overall life of that fluid, depending on water ingressions. It can, not provide as enough rust and corrosion and protection, as well as maybe cause some premature failure.
Okay. And so, beyond the biodegradable capabilities, what are maybe some of the other benefits that this hydraulic fluid offers?
Yeah, great question. So, on terms of biodegradability for EALs, we have two kind of terms that are used. You have readily and inherently biodegradable. Readily is the better because you have a greater percentage, 60% or greater of that fluid breaks down within a 10-day window, whereas inherently is only 20% degradation or greater within that 10-day window. So, our product is readily biodegradable. You want that to happen. But you also need to have factors like great oxidation stability, hydrolytic stability, which, with the presence of water and being around different waterways, it's important to have that. Making sure that you have seal compatibility, as well as great air release. Those are all musts to be taken into account with the types of hydraulics that are used in different pieces of equipment out there today. On top of that, you can stack the various global environmental certifications. Again, as mentioned, that EU Eco label, but you can't just build for all certifications. It has to be cost effective and scalable so that customers can afford to use this in their systems. And then we need to make sure that we achieve compatibility. So with existing hydraulic systems, you can't create something that's so new that it doesn't work in the equipment out there today. And then we need to make sure that we have a formulation that provides great performance and protection with a variety of temperatures, from cold temperatures to high operating temperatures. And then we need to consider that long-term durability, as well as operational efficiency. We live in a market since COVID has occurred where we have to do more with less. So we need more out of our equipment. Need our equipment to operate at its highest peak level. We need it to be efficient. We need it to not break down. And so in this industry as well, these systems can be exposed to contaminants, whether it's particle contamination or water contamination. So we need to also look at the filterability of the fluid as well.
Okay. And so what are some of the applications that the hydraulic fluid could be used in, or are there applications where it maybe would not be as well suited?
Yeah, great question. So the Clarity Bio EliteSyn hydraulic oil is great because you can meet the environmental regulations as well as not compromise on performance. So we consider this a great product to be used in any area that has an environmentally sensitive criteria, as well as industries like construction, mining, manufacturing, marine, offshore drilling, agriculture, forestry, certain applications where the machinery might be operating such as coastal areas, waterways, estuaries, harbors, any sort of protected natural parks or reserves. Really any place where wildlife is vulnerable, food is grown. We want to make sure that, again, we're protecting the wildlife in these areas, and we can do that by our product having a zinc-free, or what we call an ashless additive package as well. Some areas where it might be unsuitable to use is if you need specifically a mineral oil, right, like a non-synthetic, or anything where you might have a niche sort of application, like a fire-resistant hydraulic fluid. This isn't a fire-resistant hydraulic fluid. It's not suitable for aerospace, right? There's different regulations and things that are needed to achieve those specifications. So our product data sheets that are out there will have all of that spelled out for people who need to really kind of get into the nitty-gritty, but that kind of just gives you a general overall picture.
Great. And so just to kind of help wrap up our conversation, how do you see the development and use of biodegradable hydraulic fluids in general kind of progressing? And are you seeing more people interested in utilizing them, or that interest increasing over the years at all?
Yeah, that's it's a great question. There are a lot of advances in the different fluids out there today, right? With this new base oil that we've come up with that's renewable. without compromising on performance. In fact, if you look at the Clarity Bio EliteSyn performance compared to the traditional hydraulic fluids out there today, it exceeds those performance standards. So you've got the readily biodegradable. We have exceptional toast, over 10,000 hours. We have an efficiency gain. When we've measured it with multiple pieces of equipment and multiple operators, we've seen over double-digit gains. And that's compared to the highest performing products out there today. You don't have to worry about seal compatibility. There's no issues there. We've brought cleanliness into the fold, making sure that we can filter the lubricant to be the OEM's cleanliness specification. We have the superior hydrolytic stability. So again, that presence of water, when you're working in a water contaminated environment, you really need to make sure that you're protecting for that. We've got the low and high temperature pumpability and protection. We have the zinc-free ashless formula, so it's safe to use in environmentally sensitive areas. And then we've exceeded air release standards as well compared to many of the products out there. It will release the entrained air in just over 2 minutes. And again, if you can't release that air, or if contaminants get into a lubricant, a lot of times it affects that air release, which means that you can have microdieseling or damage taking place inside that equipment. So overall, while we've really focused on this meeting the EAL standards for what's needed, it could be really used in a multitude of applications. I like to call this the next generation of hydraulic fluids, and it's really exciting. I would encourage anyone to take a look at it for their needs because it's very cost effective. And it's going to allow you to achieve your own sustainability standards for your own company by using a renewable product.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and provide some insight into this new biodegradable hydraulic fluid and just and kind of how it can be utilized in the industry.